Okay, so this is a game I recorded this weekend. Really cool game one, followed by an absolute punt in game two. And for some reason, we have the game sound, but it did not record any of my commentary over it. I'm going to go ahead and post it as a single game video because, like I said, really good game one, and then just terrible punt in game two. So we'll go ahead and check it out here. So it looks like kind of a sketchy keep. Opponent is mulliganing to 5. I'm on 7, but this is one of those 7s that you just kind of keep and hope it goes somewhere. We have the lootings to look. We have the long game with endurance. We have the cookbook. We have the opal with the cookbook, which will give us some mana acceleration, but really not sure this hand goes anywhere. So let's see what happens. Go ahead and loot here off of Blood Crypt. Find 2 more lands. Pretty terrible. And we're going to throw 2 of them away and pass it back over. At this point, you're looking at Marsh Flats. It's probably Goryo's, but you don't really know. Could be Death and Taxes. Could be any black deck. Could be lots of things. Could be Boros with a Marsh Flat. So we'll see what they get here. Meticulous Archive. At this point, we are assuming it's Goryo's, but we're not sure. We see a Spell Snare, and pretty sure it's Goryo's. Look at me enjoying my coffee, thinking I'm talking into a microphone. Little do I know the terrible experience I'm about to have. All right, frogs on the board. Really good start for them. I draw another cookbook, which I don't really need. I don't have a removal spell. I don't have Asmo. I think what I'm thinking about here is, do I want to go ahead and commit to a cookbook to get a food going so that if I do draw Asmo, I will be able to immediately attack the frog. He's only got 3 cards in hand, so an Asmo would be able to kill it. But unfortunately, we just kind of find air. We're going to send back 1 cookbook and a land. I think I'm trying to decide which one. We'll hang on to the Persist, the Monument, and the other stuff. All right, we play the Saga. Probably play Cookbook and Opal here. Usually there's 1 to 0 copies of Wrath the Skies or Pest Control game 1. Sometimes up to 2 copies. And then after board, you kind of have to expect 4+ of that effect. So these kind of hands that go wide on artifacts are much more reliable in game 1 than they are in game 2 or game 3. So opponent has a frog. I've got nothing going on. I am under the gun here and not looking great. Take 1 from the frog. Opponent plays a Flooded Strand. Maybe this is Riddler? Ending. Okay. So they want to go ahead and get rid of this cookbook now. I already ditched another one. I'm just trying to up the artifact count so that Mox Opal will turn on again in the future. Unfortunately, that's a really bad draw. It's the only tapped land in the deck. It does not turn on the Mox Opal and also does not let me activate the Urza Saga and finds a redundant Persist when the first copy of Persist wasn't really doing anything anyway. So this hand really kind of petered out, not looking great. Opponent mulled the 5, but has recovered nicely with a frog, which is really his best way to do that. And then the prismatic ending on the cookbook was very good. So let's see where it goes from here. I left the second camera here because when I eventually tilt off, my face is very funny. So we're going to go ahead and let Past John be be upset when he blows this match. All right, the opponent casts a Quantum Riddler. And when they do this, they have the choice to kind of go all in on it. So they can discard down to 1 in hand and then draw 2 with the frog if they want to. If they like the cards in their hand, they're not going to do that. They choose not to, which means they probably have some good ones in their hand. And now they're up to 4 cards in hand to my 2, with a frog on the board and a Riddler going to warp. And they're probably feeling pretty comfortable over there. All right, drew an Overlord. This card is kind of in and out of the deck. I'm trying to decide here whether I want to create a construct token or if I want to do something else. I end up deciding to do something else. I think, yeah. So we'll grab a cookbook here, and if we can land Overlord, it would be okay. I'm surprised I didn't cast the monument there. All right, that's a good find because it lets us start churning discards with the cookbook. When we do get the monument online, it's going to be a lot better. But again, we are looking at 1 turn of just not much to do. I'm thinking that I played Overlord because I had 4 total mana there, and if I did hit Archon, it would be a really nice spot to use that persist in my hand. But we ended up not hitting. We found the Daredevil instead. Daredevil's pretty good, not as good as hitting Archon because it would have dealt with the frog and put us ahead, assuming it would have resolved. So they're now fetching a Surveil land on my instep, and my Overlord is ticking down. All right, they're untapping with Frog, 5 cards in their hand, and me with no real way to interact with them. Again, we're not looking great here. This was round 1 or 2 of the challenge. I think it's round 2. All right, so he's kind of going all in on the frog here, trying to get me dead. I do think it would have made a little more sense to do that when he had the Riddler last turn, but maybe he thought he wanted those cards at that point. Now less certain about it. Keeping 3 in his hand. Clearly likes the 3. Going back up to 4. So we got to think he's holding reactive cards or 1/2 of the Goryo's combo, whether it be a giant thing or a reanimation spell, but no other half. That's really the only way that I think he would be holding 4 cards and doing nothing here. All right, he's going to Thought Seize me. I think the food token is a cookbook. It's not. I go ahead and activate Daredevil. I assume he's going to take Monument here because the Persist really does not have any targets. And once he takes the Monument, I will really have not much going on at all. You can see me hovering over the Overall Chase Daredevil, telling him to take it, but unfortunately, I think my opponent has a working brain, unlike me later in this match. So he's deciding between Monument and Persist. I think Monument's the right choice. But this does tell me that he probably doesn't have like a Spell Snare or some other way to deal with a top-decked Archon, which is why he's considering the Persist, but I think Monument's just the right call. It lets me work my way back in the game if it resolves. Already have the active cookbook with the Daredevil. Takes the Persist, which I think is wrong. Now, if he just slams Counterspell on this Monument, I'll think differently, but we'll see. I mean, he absolutely knew that was coming. I got to think that is a mistake there, letting me establish this engine at the cost of Persist. All right, and Persist found the, or excuse me, Monument found the Archon, which is what he was scared of. So maybe that's an argument for, good thing he took the Persist, because I would have just drawn it next turn, but still. All right, he gets another free shot with the Frog. He can get it all the way up to 7 power if he really wants to. And I'm just sitting over here taking my beats, doing nothing. Draws another one up to 5. All right. Looting is great with Monument. So we'll go ahead and fire that off. We have... Our hand is full of things we want to discard. So we can go ahead and get rid of 1 Daredevil and the Archon. Oh, you know what? I'm holding Archon in case he has some kind of exile spell, I guess. Maybe to conceal some information. I'm thinking about whether I want to start going after his life total. He is all the way down at 13 here. I decide I want a treasure token to help out with mana and a card. I think you could have argued for any combination there. We do have 2 more cookbook activations, so I assume he will be losing that life. All right, there's the Persist. He took the first one, but Monument drew me into the second one. His hand could also just be a bunch of Solitudes, which covers this off pretty nicely. All right, he's done having to think. Cast the other cookbook. Decide the time is now for the Archon. Blast him with the life loss. Persist the Archon. Let's see if he has a response here. He does not. He's going to lose the Frog. Or maybe he has a Solitude. But even with the Solitude, that Evoke trigger is going to go on the stack before the sacrifice. I'm yapping about something. All right, so my opponent has settled on his discard. He has gotten rid of Thoughtseize. I think he's trying to decide if there's a way where he can sacrifice a Solitude, and I think he's slowly figuring out that that doesn't work. So he just lets the Frog go. We get a Thoughtseize. All right, so we don't want to activate this cookbook here because we've already used all 3 modes. We'll wait for his turn. We will Thoughtseize. Now I assume is the Solitude? No, the Goryos. Okay. Traxa is in. Found Force of Negation, Delta, Goryos, Thoughtseize, Flooded Strand, Ephemerate, Psychic Frog, another Force, Faithful Mending, and another backup Atraxa. A lot to work with over there, a lot of decisions to be made. Goes up to 7 in hand. Thoughtseize resolves. He will Ephemerate the Atraxa, get a look at another 10 cards. Again, this Archon has already triggered, so he's not going to have to sacrifice that Atraxa. That girl is here to stay. She's a big girl. She's from San Antonio. All right, 10 in hand. He'll go ahead and Solitude, getting rid of the Archon. My reaction's funny. Oh, you have all of it, huh? So Goryo's double frog, Thoughtseize of his own, which does nothing, ending, which can hit the cookbook, maybe the monument, and then a Grizzlebrand. So we're obviously not picking the Grizzlebrand. Um, I think I end up taking the Goryos here, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I could see arguments for ending Frog or Goryos, but Goryos is very powerful. Don't click the Grizzlebrand, John. That would be a mistake. All right, we get rid of the Goryos. He's got an Atraxa. He's at 7, but he's going to gain a lot of life when that thing hits me in the face next turn. Would love an Asmo here. We have not drawn one yet. We are halfway through our deck, and we have a lot of food to use as ammo. All right, ship it back over. The Ephemerate will let him get a third Atraxa trigger, or he can choose to attack in. I was kind of surprised when he chose to Ephemerate, but maybe he's thinking, oh, I'll find a Goryo's to go with this Grizzlebrand, and I'll gain a bunch of life anyway. So my opponent has looked at 30 cards here in this kind of turn and a half cycle. All right. He finishes resolving the Atraxa trigger. You got to think he just has a perfectly sculpted hand. His bottleneck here is life, but we know he's holding a Grizzlebrand. I assume he found another Goryo's. All right, here comes a frog. There's the Grizzlebrand. Yep. All right, so he has 7 hasty power. Full grip of 7 cards in his hand, up to 13 life. Let's see if he wants to fire off another Grizzlebrand activation and make that 37 cards. Kind of think it makes more sense to just... Okay, so he ephemerates. So now he's got 2 giant lifelink monsters and a psychic frog against a monument and 2 cookbooks. All right, at this point, we no longer think we can drain him out. That second monument is very interesting. There's no decision to be made here. I'm just running through the permutations of what that extra monument means. There's an Archon. All right, so now we've got to decide what we want to do with this turn. We've got 4 mana plus the ability to make some treasures. Has to start with the monument. But deciding, you know, we can do 12 before he can hit us, but it's only 12. And our third cookbook is already in the graveyard, so the chance of just spiking, you know, another monument or something. One of the other monuments is also in the graveyard, so, you know, we only have so many resources to work with here. 3 persists are also in my graveyard, so this Archon kind of unlikely to find a home. All right, we'll start with Daredevil. Draw a card. And now I'm trying to decide whether I want the other card draw right away. Most options possible. There's the 4th persist. That is a great hit. And an untapped land. That's probably just about the best we could have hit there. There's the Saga. One more cookbook activation. We got to do it now because we need to persist this Archon to have a chance here. We saw Force of Negation. I don't remember if he put it in his hand, but um, we know he has it. We split it between Treasure Token and Life Loss. Again, we can't kill him. We're a cookbook short of killing him because we had to activate on our turn to get this far down the line. That treasure token makes it so if we draw Asmo, we can cast Asmo and knock out some of these creatures. So that's, I assume that's what I was looking for here. All right, frog down. We draw a useless land. And we are out of tricks. One treasure token is not enough to activate a food. He really should not rebound this. Yeah. He wants to be able to attack. Solitude here is game over. Any removal spell is game over. Alright, he's sending it in. Did not have a removal spell in hand. Doesn't really matter which one I block. I go to 5. All of our persists are in the graveyard, so that is no longer an out. He's all the way up to 21. Not looking good for our intrepid hero here. Here comes another frog. Alright, so this saga is going to go off. And we're going to be able to get our last cookbook. I'm trying to decide if a construct does anything here, but even if it does, we still have a choice to make it with the other saga. So I think, yeah, I'm pointing at it. I think we just go grab, oh, we're out of cookbooks. I thought we had one more. Oh, he exiled one. Yeah, I definitely thought there was one more cookbook in the deck. So I waste a mana there because I thought I was grabbing a cookbook and I had to grab an opal. So yeah, now I'm counting them. Don't realize there's one in exile. Found it. Took a minute. Alright, so we have started this turn off by wasting a mana. Discard Daredevil. Got to start with card draw. Looking for Asmo. Third Daredevil, not what we're looking for, but the Asmo is there. Alright, so Asmo can kill a Traxa in one shot because it has Death Touch. Takes 2 shots to kill Grizzlebrand because it has 7 toughness, and Asmo hits for 6. So we have 4 shots with Asmo available. Can't get up to the 5th because we don't have another cookbook. So 4 shots could wipe his board, but he would gain 21 more life if we do that. There's no cookbook in the deck. We'll start with Frog. Pitching 4 cards would save him. So he'll draw with Grizzlebrand. Trying to decide what I want to do with this ammo. Only so much food to throw here. So there's already 6 on the frog. He gains 14 if I hit Grizzlebrand. Alright, we're just going to let the first 6 happen. We'll see how much he wants to discard. Okay, at least one. There's an Atraxa. Alright. He's in on saving the frog. Alright, so the frog will live the first Asmo shot. Too powerful for one tummy ache to take down. We go again. He really shouldn't draw another 7. Mountain. There's lootings available in the yard with a mana floating. That's what we're going to go for. Unfortunately, that Asmo has no additional cookbook to find. Right. And now we're going to max out. Oh, I don't know what's going on there. We're now up to 5 mana. We don't have any way to make more food. We can make 2 more foods currently. Foods can also be used to gain life. No way to block these giant flyers. We are going to get an Overlord here, which really doesn't do anything. Maybe it'll distract him. Alright. Upkeep. We're letting him go to his main phase because we can only do 6. We cannot do 7. Now we've got to decide what we're doing. Attacks with both. I guess we don't have to kill the Atraxa, but we choose to kill the Atraxa. He's going to gain 7, go up to 14. Yeah, we had to kill that. And now we have to gain life with the remaining food tokens. Up to 8. Down to 1. We're holding that cookbook for now. Trying to decide, you know, do we need to try to drain him? But once he's hit with Grizzlebrand, he's back up to 20. We can do 6 a turn cycle, so we have 18 on board here before any attack damage. So that puts him down to 18. So now he's in range of dying to 3 cookbook activations over the next 2 turns. Probably a Solitude. Now he Solitudes. Let's see the target. Gonna target Asmo. Now we'll go ahead and activate. Yeah, to the dome. Put him to 12. We're gonna go to 4 when we eat this Solitude. Alright, so Inti is Trample. Alright, we've got less to do with our mana now, so now it's time to make a Construct token. 11 is a lot. No Skateboard in the deck. Would have been good there. I actually remembered to use the Mox Opal correctly that time. We're learning. Alright. Here comes Inti. He's at 15. It's about to catch 6 trampling from this Overlord. Now we've got Inti going as well. Drop him to 6. And we see the 3rd monument. It's actually the 4th monument because the other one's in the graveyard. We have 18 cards left in our deck, 17 cards left in his deck. We're going to fire off this monument here. Goryo's for another Atraxa. This is the 4th Atraxa activation in this game. Gonna look at 10 more cards. Now looked at 40 cards off of Atraxa. There's only 60 in the deck. He's also drawn with Grizzlebrand twice, I think. Just an insane game. Takes Atraxa, Faithful Mending, and Watery Grave, but he is tapped out. Force of Negation on the Monument. Trying to figure out what he has. Don't think he has a way to gain life at instant speed. Unless he has another Solitude to get his own creature. Don't know what I'm thinking with that land. Alright. Asmo. Not sure we needed to do that. If he's got Consign to Memory, I can't win this game. But I have not seen one, and we've seen most of his deck. Alright, Asmo's in. Nothing to look for. Traxxer's gone. Here comes Solitude. probably targeting his own Atraxa. He'll gain another 7. This is just an insane back and forth game. He's gained so much life. Alright. We can live this turn, but killing the Grizzlebrand means he gains 14. Alright, here it comes. Discard one of our 4 Oval Chase Daredevils. Exile a card to Inti. Now we're just drawing, looking for answers. I guarantee you I did not do the math on how much damage that actually is and how much I would need to kill him. Street Wraith would be good if we had any life to play with, but we don't. A removal spell on Asmo here wins the game. So if that's Solitude, we had to use the Solitude to live. Alright. He's going to gain 12, not 14, excuse me. Alright, 6 to himself. Tummy ache for Grizzlebrand. Ouch. Second tummy ache. Draws 7. Maybe looking for an Ephemerate? Yep, finds the Ephemerate. But had to take 7 to do that. 6 cards in his deck. Another Ephemerate. What's he going after? Hitting the Asmo. Alright, he has 8 cards in his hand now. 5 cards in my hand. 4 of them pretty useless. Alright, Riddler. In. 5 cards in his deck. 8 cards in his hand. Street Wraith down to 2. Trigger Inti, trigger both monuments. Gonna go down to 12 cards in my deck. Putting them to 6. Going to 2. Really shouldn't use that Thoughtseize. Would die. Moving to discard, tapped out. Can Solitude his own thing, but starting with Emperor. Emperor's great in these matchups because it lets you steal their giant monsters. Alright. Can you gain any life or are you dead? Another Solitude on the stack. The yo-yoing continues. 5 cards in hand, 5 cards in library. Up to 7. Leaves his lifelink creatures in play. Find another Asmo off of Inti. And they scoop. Awesome game 1. Alright, we'll pick up here on the sideboarding for game 2. We're bringing in 1 Blood Moon and then all 3 of our graveyard hate creatures. There's an argument for 1 Vexing Bauble, but they're bringing in a lot of pest control, Wrath the Skies type stuff, and, you know, the Vexing Bauble gets swept up in that. Inti out, which is a really hard cut because Inti was great that game. I think if I could go back in time, I'd probably find a way to get that Inti back in the 60. I want the heat, I want the push, I want the thought seizes, I want the Inti, I want every card available to me, and it's just hard to cut anything. When you start cutting Daredevils or Street Wraiths, you really lose the cohesion of the deck, and you know, this is a synergy deck. It's really tough to go down on synergistic pieces because the whole thing kind of stops working. Okay, game 2. Looking good. Only 1 mana, but we do have Surgical and Thoughtseize and Faithless Looting and a Persist, so feeling pretty good here on the draw. I think it sounds better actually on the draw than on the play because you only have 1 land. Alright, we like the Street Wraith. Probably going to cycle it. See if we can find an Asmo. Although, we decide not to cycle because we're going to Thoughtseize first. Wrath of the Skies, Pest Control, Goryo's Vengeance. So, obviously, Pest Control and Wrath of the Skies are both great against us. But this hand in particular is a little less susceptible to those. Still, I think you got to take one of them, especially because the Surgical blanks the Goryos, and so we leave him with Wrath of the Skies. Now we know about it. We can play around it a little bit, and it is more mana intensive than Pest Control, although it will let him kill more things if he wants to. Perfect draw. Look how annoyed I am. I'm like, of course he drew a frog. Alright. We're going to start with Street Wraith, see if we find Asmo. No Asmo, but we do find an Archon. So we know his hand has no way to interact with this right now. We're comfortable looting this away. Get rid of the Cookbook or a Bloodstained Mire. I can see Cookbook because we know about Wrath of the Skies. And we want the 3rd land for Endurance, so that, or Monument to Endurance, so that makes sense. We have the Surgical for protection here. This frog is about to get chomped up. Alright, so we knew they draw Atraxa for turn. They pitch the Atraxa. They're walking right into the Surgical Extraction. Here we go. Easy game. Surgical the Atraxa. Leave them with not much action. Persist the Archon next turn. Win the game. Easy peasy. We're going to do it with the Swamp to pay a little less life here. Alright, 1 Atraxa, 2 Atraxa. Don't forget that one in the graveyard, dumbass. And punt. Look at my face. Oh, I could read my own lips. I heard an oh fuck in there. Oh, and we typed the fuck too. Just brutal. Now that Archon doesn't look so good. And he draws his own Surgical Extraction from the Atraxa. We can't even look. We're hiding behind our hands. Embarrassed to be here. Can't believe this happened. Had it wrapped up. Instead, we're taking 9 to the face. 10. 11. 12 and 13. That is lethal. We don't even get to our turn. This is how you lose a game of Magic. Takeaway here, Magic is hard. I am stupid. And that's a brutal loss. Alright, we're going to game 3. Still completely on tilt. But there's hope in our heart. Maybe we can win. Maybe we can bring it back. This hand does not cast Faithless Looting. We're going down to 6. Not much time on the clock. This hand has no lands. I'm angry. I've leaned back in my chair. We're keeping 5. It's not a good 5. Still only 1 land. What do we put back? Only need 1 of those. Which one do we keep? We probably want to keep the Emperor. We'll see. I don't remember what I do, actually. Yeah. I mean, that would have been a nice 7. Even a pretty nice 6, but just not much there. Okay. They don't have a lot going on. We're going to leave them with just Force of Negation and Quantum Riddler. We can take the Solitude. If we draw land, we can then use the Emperor to eat their Solitude and have some protection. Not bad. Good start, considering our shitty mold to 5. He's also down to 3 minutes on the clock. Surveils with Archive. Into the bin. Didn't need another land. Our opponent's a little flooded. We're a little screwed. Beautiful. Second land. We're in business. We're going to go ahead and gobble up that Solitude. His hand is Force of Negation, Quantum Riddler. We're okay. Alright, that's a Pluto Delta we knew about. I'm not doing a good job of tracking these cards. I think I'm starting to now. Alright, so we know 4 of the 6 cards in his hand. He's probably going to play this Riddler. Yep, knew about that one. So now he's refueled. Could have drawn plenty of stuff. Alright, let's take a look. Maybe he'll have a giant monster that we can steal. No such luck there. Probably need to take the Solitude or the Frog. Think we have to take the Solitude because the Emperor is the only thing we have going on here. We're protecting the Queen, and it is a tiny little Queen. Nothing useful to do with this cookbook. We'll get your other Solitude. Hanging on by a thread over here. We're ahead on the clock and behind on board. I mean, there are draws that this is okay against, but it's not very many of them. We really want him to, like, mending and go all in trying to reanimate something. Another cookbook, pretty useless. Probably just want to hold it for discard fodder later. It's not really adding much. Down to 13. Trying to play it cool over there. Thinking we have a chance after that terrible punt. What I'm actually thinking is I should be downstairs making another cup of coffee, getting ready for the next round of the challenge. But instead, I couldn't figure out how to click on the correct Atraxa, and we find ourselves here in this hell. All right, another Surveil land. Our opponent has lots of selection. We've got nothing going on. Again, really our only shot here is for them to try to go all in on a Goryo's line and us be able to break it up with Surgical Extraction. And Wrath the Skies just completely blows us out here. Monument. Can't cast it. We'll go ahead and make a cookbook. If we draw land, maybe we can claw our way back in with a cookbook and a monument. Frog is here. Alright, there's a persist. Maybe we'll draw Archon. What I'm thinking about here is whether persisting the Emperor of Bones does anything. I think I decide it does not. and thinking, you know, a better chance is hoping to just top deck an Archon. Fifth land can now manually Solitude, even though we've already exiled 2 of them already. Riddler from exile. It's getting worse before it gets better. This time, they're going down with the Frog to draw 2 more. This engine really helps them kind of claw out from bad draws. Alright, so now we are super dead on board. Staring down 8 more next turn. 9 more next turn. Archon or bust. Drawing 2 more cards with the Frog. Really good turn from them there. And we have drawn nothing. And we are out of here. Oh, maybe we're hanging on. Maybe we can bluff something. Maybe they just won't attack with their 2 giant creatures. Maybe that's all we need. Maybe they'll waste 53 seconds before they attack. Oh, the dejection. And concede. And then immediate tilt drop. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you lose a very winnable match of Magic. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make better decisions than me, and we'll see you on the next one.